All right, we are live right now. Just FYI.
Oh, awesome! I'm gonna switch my headphones.
All right.
Tell me if they pick up. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. This is cool.
It's the pre-show, man. It's the pre-show. We have like 500.
Everyone knows.
We got like 500 people on Facebook watching already.
Oh my god! Everyone knows the pre-show is where it really goes down to.
That's where it's all at.
Until the actual show happens.
Until the actual show
happens. And then the after show, that's where it really happens. So whatever we're doing is where it's going on.
There we go. It's all about the music right now.
Yeah. Well, this is fun, man. I'm glad we're doing this together.
Yeah, totally.
What are we going to talk about? Who even knows?
Who even knows? I say we do it like Carl and Carla. Just figure it out.
What are we doing today? Yeah.
Figure it out as the audience.
Yeah. Is the color coming through on the background? I repositioned it. I don't know if it's even working.
Lost it.
But...
You got 30 seconds to figure it out.
What about that?
That looks good. Put my phone on silent. I'm getting serious. I like this tune too, man. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. Here we go. We're live, man. We'll leave a little bit of the good pick tunes in the background. Welcome to the, I got to find the right button here, the No Fucks Given podcast, Living Your Authentic Life with myself, Ryan Perry, and of course, my buddy, it's always backwards, Will Cordingley.
Yeah. What's always backwards?
On your screen, I'm pointing over here, but on the actual audience, you got to do it. It's always backwards. So good times.
Yeah, totally.
So if you see me looking to my left, it's just because I'm checking the stream to make sure that we're actually live streaming according to both Facebook and YouTube. We are live streaming, sir. So this is it. It's official. The halo glow behind you is legit. Looks sharp.
Yeah, it's looking kind of funny. Maybe I'll change the colors around at some point. I'm kind of feeling like a mega church preacher, you know.
Hey, well, this is the show, The
Yeah,
Preach, because we get to talk about whatever it is that we want to. It's kind of
yeah.
right in the name of the show. And I think we should probably, why don't we just kind of get into it, as far as this initial show is really just kind of talking about how this came up, what are our goals, what do we want to achieve, and kind of like, anything else that comes out of it. One of the things that I think we talked about, Will, with this is that it's going to be kind of a free form. While we're going to have content topic ideas about living your authentic life, if we get off on a tangent, we're allowed to get off on a tangent. And we're really looking for audience participation too as we start building the podcast.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what's kind of cool about the podcast format and the online show format, if you will, is we can kind of make up the rules as we go and do whatever we would like, which
Yeah.
is kind of metaphor for life anyways. So
Yeah, totally.
we pretend like we have structures and normalcies, but we're all just kind of making it up as we go.
And those structures would be
Yeah.
patterns. So we have a
Mhm.
lot of patterns in life that give us the idea of structure. And so where this all came from was let's kind of like step back 20, I don't know if it was 2016 or 2017, because I started NLP Marin. I started training at NLP Marin. For those that are not aware of NLP, it's neuro linguistics programming. I call it neuroscience because it really does get into the science of the brain. However, I think a lot of what is taught, you can't necessarily, you can show that it works, but if you try and mathematically do like a formula that it works, it's a little bit harder to do that. Like scientifically prove that this is the way the brain works, I think is kind of
Mhm.
difficult at our level of understanding in the world at this point, what we understand about the brain. When
Well, a
I,
lot of what they put together in the 70s at the in the inception of neurolinguistic programming was based on, they basically modeled some of the most renowned therapists
right,
alive on the planet at the time. And so it's more of a modeling technology than a peer reviewed,
right,
scientifically verified neuroscience thing.
right.
However, as neuroscience keeps developing, it keeps actually like kind of wildly validating all this stuff. So that was a bit ahead of its time. So I feel fortunate to have stumbled into it, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And to be
Yeah.
so close. I mean, both of us are in Northern California. We're about 45 minutes apart from each other. But so I started at NLP Marin in 2016. And then I think it was the next class that I took is where I met you, which was the master's training. And
Okay. Yeah.
because you audited that master's. And I just
Oh,
remember
was that
meeting
the
you and
one? Okay.
I'm like, and I didn't understand what auditing meant at the time. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, he's auditing,
For
whatever. But I'm like, this dude,
repeating for those
yeah,
who wouldn't know what that
I,
is now.
I did
Was
not know this. So when I first met you, I'm like, where is this guy coming from? Like his knowledge and just his smoothness and the way he was able to go really deep with people like quickly and just kind of your calm demeanor either way. I was like, holy crap. I'm like, I want to work with this guy. When we had chances to work in groups, I'm like, I want to work with this guy. Um,
really? I
oh
didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Man, so this has been a, and thank you so much. After I've been kind of immersed in this realm since late 2012, early 2013, and after all this time, I'll say thanks for the compliment instead of rejecting it.
Hey, the choice is yours, but I appreciate it.
There you
Um,
go. Well, that
yeah,
sums up life. The
yeah.
choice is yours.
So
Yeah.
I think we've known each other from like late 2016, 2017, somewhere in that department or that neighborhood, I should say. And
Mhm.
we've kind of talked about when the pandemic happened, I was like, okay, we got into doing the virtual live cast and it was new software for me, what we're doing right now, the whole live thing with the
Yeah.
overlays and being able to do all these fancy merges and all that. And I'm like, I need practice. So I reached out to you and a couple other people. I like, hey, if you know, would it be cool to do like a video podcast? It wasn't the right time. And then I'm like, I just need to talk about what we've learned because it's so cool and to be able to share. And I love education in general, and how the mind works has always fascinated me. And so I was like, okay, well, who I'm like, Will would be a great person to do a podcast with, to have these types of conversations with. So I reached out to you, and I had the idea of no, and I got to work on the timing here, the No Fucks Given podcast.
Just for the record, that joke for me will never. The misplaced beep is a classic and always evergreen joke for me personally.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
So continue to keep on laughing. I'll have to time it with one of your sips at some point. But the idea behind this is not to give a finger to the world or anything, or it's not that you don't even care. And I think we tried to incorporate the message of the podcast, which is living your authentic life. The No Fucks Given is really about removing the filters that really kind of control the way we see ourselves and the world, and being able to say, I just want to get rid of those filters and be as authentic to myself, not worrying about other people. May it be friends, may it be family, may it be society values or anything else like that. How can I start shedding some of that and just letting go? And so that's kind of where it came from. And then as we get into my initial idea with the logo, which is over yonder, over by Will there, was I was like, oh, a cat would be cool, because cats really they don't care. You know, they'll knock stuff off, they'll claw stuff, you know, and they just do whatever they want.
That's true. I want to back up just one hair here, because when you called me, I didn't know this was such a long time coming, which is so cool. I was actually when I saw your name on my phone, I was a bit busy, but something in my mind from out of nowhere, when really good stuff happens, actually, this happens. So this is why I was like, you should pick this up. And I picked this up, and you're like, I want to do this online show podcast. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm making videos, but I'm not having that much fun. And I'm actually working with a career person who's kind of evaluated me and my life, my personality. And he's like, you should really be collaborating with people. So the time of this was really interesting. And you were like, and I want to call it No Fucks Given. And I was like, gulp, you know, like, I really have this skill nailed down inside of me. Like, I feel like I know how to change people's lives profoundly who are looking for that experience. And, you know, am I about to commit career suicide by putting swear words front and center?
Well, and connecting with me, you know.
Oh, well, that's a different issue.
That's a different topic. We've got plenty of shows in the future, so.
Yeah, we can explore all that. Well, we can delve deep into your psyche and see. Yeah. You know, what's wrong with a little tour through the darkness, you know, once in a while. It's good for the soul. But the fear that came up in me, I was like, well, look, I kind of thought about it. I think we left it as, well, I think we were like, let's talk in a few days and let's think on it about all of this. And when I was chewing on it, I was like, oh, okay. I actually really like everything about this, other than it just is kind of scary. So,
and typically when things are scary, that's what we need to move towards, right? Because it's outside of the comfort zone. So,
totally, and that's where the conclusion I came to was like, well, so your brain makes pictures about never having a client again because it sounds juvenile or offensive. I'm like, well, that's not true. There's almost 8 billion people in the world. I'm not for everyone anyways, and this will just help that clarify.
Right.
I don't swear much when I do client work, but I do swear in my life. So it's an authentic expression of who I am being under a title like this.
Right.
And it felt like it was the next level. So here we are. And
So
thanks
here
for
we are.
calling me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because if you notice in the logo, that is not a cat.
That is not a cat. So yeah, I love cats. And I think you too, you're like, cats don't give a fuck. Like
Right.
that could be a good branding for us. And I thought about it. I grew up with cats and it's like cats don't give a fuck. But it's kind of personal. Like they will mess with your psychology just because it's who they are and it's fun for them and they want to play games sometimes. And they're totally loving and amazing. And I plan to own many of them over the span of my life. But I didn't, it like just wasn't quite right for what we want to do. But then I remembered that hilarious video from years ago. It's like, well, honey badger don't give a fuck.
All right.
And I watched it. I kind of had forgotten about it. I'm like, this is amazing. First of all, like everyone should watch this every day and it'll like improve your life because
Right.
it's great. But the honey badger just does what it wants because it's an authentic expression of who he or she is. It's not like destructive or manipulative or agendaed. It's just like, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. I'm in
Right.
danger, I'm going to fight. I'm going to live my life and get my needs met. And that was kind of how we landed on the honey badger as the totem and the symbol for our show.
Yeah. And I love you use the word manipulative. And that's kind of
Mm.
that's part of the no fucks given in this case is that it's not the intent is if you're living your authentic life, you don't have to manipulate people. And
Yeah.
so it's very freeing when you don't have to worry about the other 8 billion people in the world. And all you have to
Hmm.
really do is just kind of worry about yourself. And obviously there's going to be people that are close to you that you're going to have some concern for and worry whatever it might be for you individually. So it's not even being about a loner, right? This independent person who doesn't care about anybody. It's really none of that. It's really just identifying and helping people to identify who they authentically are and want to be. I just
Yeah.
saw, I don't know if I can find it real quick. Was on YouTube this morning and is it Little Nas? Lil Nas, the one that did the cowboy thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you
Um,
actually introduced me to him on that trip. You were like, this guy's got this song. It's
yeah,
pretty
so he's
cool.
actually
Yeah.
he's got a new post here. If the camera says
There it
it's a
is.
new video, back in time, younger version of self, struggling inside, hating myself, and doesn't want to live anymore. I try my best to uplift him. Can't wait to share this song and video with you guys on Friday. So rap music is not really it's not my go-to. I'm more of a rocker. I like my heavy metal. I like good drums and a good guitar. But I
Hmm.
also like what I consider good music. And good music to me is all kinds. I love good country music, like back in the 90s, good country music. I like good classical music, good piano, Elton John,
Hmm.
Queen, The Who. I like all types of music. Katy Perry, Madonna, the Go-Go's. I mean, just like a wide variety of music. And when he came out, I was like, oh my gosh, that song, and I forget the name of the song now, was like really cool.
Yeah, dude, too.
And what I love about Little Nas at this point is he had this opportunity. He blew up and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I have all of these great artists now," and not musical artists per se, but makeup artists and set designers and costume designers, all these fabulous artists that he's able to work with. And from the videos that I've watched of him, he is like jumping full into it. He's like he's not hiding who he is. And I'm personally blown away knowing what we know about
Hmm.
identity and how scary it is to let go of one's identity. For him to like come out of his shell, if you will, and it's not like I know who he was, but I just like I'm blown away at how much he's jumped into this as quickly as he has, because there's been a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. obviously based on this post here that
Yeah.
he's struggled through. So I think it's great. And those are things I'm still working on. You know, I'm working on shedding a lot of my identity that's not real. It's not the authentic version of me. It's this assembly of how do I belong in my family structure, how do I belong in the world structure that my
Mhm.
unconscious or subconscious created for me that, it's taken me, I'm almost 50. I was in my mid 40s when I started NLP Marin and really started working on this. Um, it took me that long to be okay with the fact that I am not who I truly am, my mid 40s, and there needs to be a shift, there needs to be a change. And so I'm still shedding stuff, but I'm like, it still scares the crap out of me, man. It's like there are major moments that I still need to kind of clear out of my system, and that's part of why I wanted to do this podcast with you is be able to have these conversations, um, be able to have real and honest conversations because a lot of times just talking about things, it's so interesting when you have an idea in your head or something, and then you just simply put words to it and speak it verbally,
Mhm.
things shift in the mind when you do that.
Yeah, you have to
So,
represent it different to yourself,
yeah,
if nothing else. Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
man, I'm right there with you, and I think probably most of the almost 8 billion of the species are right here with you and I doing this. And like, I'm a work in progress. There's things that have radically changed in my life over the last decade, and there's things that I still work on because
mhm,
I'm a human being, um, and some stuff takes time.
right.
It's like God, but the more we kind of talked about it, being inauthentic and not being able to express who you truly are, like
Mhm,
that is actually a trauma response. It's one way to put it. I think a useful way to put it. Because when we grow up and we find that we can't, if we're met with hostility or invalidation or just kind of a general coolness or anything, because when we're kids, we're very sensitive and we think everything applies to us. We're deeply narcissistic. We
right.
have to start coping and we have to start figuring things out, and our brains are infinitely creative, and
Yes.
but also as a child they are infinitely, we don't have access to a lot of our rational parts of things, so we
Right,
just come up with all these wild solutions to cope with the environments we're in, and
right. How
mostly
how
we
how to
turn
make
against ourselves.
right, because how do you make sense of the world at 1, at 2, at 3 years of age? Um,
Hmm.
when, especially at, up to 1 where you're essentially, I forget, is it up to 1 years, 12 months, that you're essentially with mom? Like, you don't separate the child, doesn't know that they're separate from mom. I forget if it's 6 months or 12
Oh,
months.
from yeah, I don't remember either, actually. Yeah, you're basically saying like you're identified 100% as mother. Yeah, we
Right,
all have a period of our life like that, and then it's kind of shocking when we start realizing that we have our own identity
right.
separate from her,
Yeah,
because our
yeah,
first second of contact with the world was inside of our mothers, and that's
right.
kind of
Right. So
a
all
natural
the things that
conclusion.
she's going through, essentially that child is going through also and trying to make sense of it. And that's the fun
Mhm.
part is, all the different ways that the brain decides to make sense of it, not knowing that other people could be culpable, but so it's me. I got to figure out how I fit, how did I do this versus, oh, okay, that guy's just being an asshole today. I don't have to worry about it. A 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, up through the ages isn't able to make that type of identity or be able to notice that and comprehend that. They just don't have the capabilities.
Yeah, completely. And if you're at the whim of, Father God and Mother God, so to speak, which is kind of how we look at it for a long time in the beginning, we learn everything from them on a cellular level and also in an experiential, going through life kind of way. If they're kind of nuts or kind of mean or kind of just not all there,
Right.
whatever that means to you, like that's terrifying. That's probably equation for almost instant death. So
Right.
having the problem be inside of us is a much better solution, as weird
Right.
as that sounds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we keep these things and we gather ages and we kind of wonder what the hell's going on. Why can't we just decide we want something great and make that happen in our lives?
Right.
Because we're
Yeah.
holding on to these old decisions about ourselves.
Yeah.
And
So,
ultimately they're working for us. They're staying alive inside our minds and our hearts and our nervous systems to keep us alive or keep us
right.
afloat in some way. So
Yeah.
being
Otherwise, you would
human
not be
is
here today, and I would not be here today. So it must,
yeah.
all the crap that we've been putting ourselves
Yeah.
through must be working because we're
Hmm.
still alive. Um, and
Yeah.
I want to, before we go like super deep on stuff, I don't want to scare people away that it's going to be like, oh, head trauma, or not head trauma, but like really deep. Sometimes it is going to be deep. But part of this is just kind of having fun, talking about real life stuff that maybe a lot of people didn't
Hmm.
know that other people were experiencing. So anyway, we're going to talk about all kind of things,
Yeah.
but you brought up the totem with the honey badger. And
Yeah. Well,
do you have that printout? Because when you first mentioned it to
I
me,
had the page pulled up. Yeah.
okay, because when you first mentioned it to me, I was like, oh, I'm like, that is exactly what I was thinking with this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I just want to say one more thing to
Yeah.
anyone who might be scared away by what we're talking about. It's I would invite anyone to kind of consider that if these topics seem weird or strange or kind of scary or kind of deep, that's actually a really important indication that maybe you want to engage with it, because this stuff is like I don't know, it's like the building blocks of life and reality, and
Right.
you as a human being, and engaging with that. I don't think there's anything more terrifying. So it's like incredibly brave act, and I don't mean that pejoratively in any way. I think some of the bravest things any human being can do is kind of turn inward and kind of face those things. And the classic, Joseph Campbell myth of, slay the dragons and all that, because it really, you can go out and be in danger and feel better than you can, internally, where you feel like you might die if like
Right.
some stuff happens. Like it is,
Yeah. Well, and
some wires
it's,
get crossed and it gets strange sometimes.
yeah,
But
and it's interesting because a lot of times when I talk to people, they don't understand that in the unconscious, subconscious, and to me, I kind of use those, I inner, they're kind of the same to me, but I know they're scientifically, they're
they
probably
have
a little bit
different
different.
categories, yeah. But
Yeah.
other than
I kinda
conscious mind, lumping it
kinda
all together is
generalize.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah, I kinda
yeah.
generalize, is that it's very black and white. There really is no gray. It's either die or live. And so
Mhm.
it's like I trying to explain to people that emotionally, when you want something as simple as like, "Oh, I just wanna get up in the morning and go for a walk." And then you wake up in the morning and you're like, I find all these excuses why I'm not gonna go for a walk." There's something in there that emotionally doesn't feel good, and because it doesn't feel good, that's the body's way, the system, the overall system's way of letting you know that, "Hey, I'm here to protect you." And this, for whatever reason, talking about things that happen in the childhood, talking about, there's so many layers. We have no idea what it is, but it is
Mhm.
the system's way of letting you know that, "Hey, I'm here to protect you." And it's very black and white. And so it really is like, okay, so you're telling me, Will, that if I want to go for a walk and it doesn't feel good, it's because the system thinks I'm going to die. And to a degree,
To some
that's
level, yeah.
to some level, that's really as simple as it all works. I mean, if you break it down, the mind is pretty simple. If it feels good, yes, go. It's okay. It's survivable.
Mhm.
If it feels bad, no, it's bad. It's not survivable. It doesn't matter logically if
Mhm.
either one of those are good or bad for you logically. It is the interpretation of the unconscious, subconscious that is saying, okay, emotionally, I'm saying yes to this because it feels good. And emotionally, I'm saying no to this because I'm making it feel bad. And it
Yeah.
doesn't care about the logic. And that was a huge aha moment for me because I live a lot in my head. And if things don't make logic, or I'm a smart guy, I should be able to figure this out. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. I know I can do it, but I don't want to do it. And so understanding that the
Yeah.
emotions drive everything was like huge for me.
Yeah, and the patterning and the beliefs and the identity make the emotions, right? They're
Right.
kind of like give the run orders for how things should feel.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's infinitely complex, which is why I just am obsessed and love this and can do this for the rest of my life and feel like I will never master it. And that's like a
Right.
great thing. That's very exciting.
Right.
And it can be broken down in really simple things. You and I, as one of our main trainers, Carl Buchheit, who I feel so lucky to have stumbled on him. Like it's like a hidden gem.
Mm-hmm.
He has a saying that I thought was so dumb for years. I just would chew on it though. He said, "Good things should feel good," and I'm like, that is so simplistic and blah blah blah, whatever.
Right.
But it sums it up. It's like if you can put your mind to something positive in your life and it's not harming anyone else, like that should feel good in your system.
Right.
In should meaning like in an ideal world.
Right.
And if it doesn't, we have an equation of well-being being a threat or invalidating or annihilating in some way.
All right. Or not belonging. Which I guess
Yeah,
which leads to annihilation and different things.
Yeah, well, as a kid, not belonging equates to death essentially,
Right.
because who's going to feed you your 3 squares a day and tuck you
Right.
in at night?
Right.
So things get really complicated, man. I have to commend everyone on the planet for just kind of getting up every day and doing it, because
Right.
it's tricky business. That saying that, never judge. I forget who said it, and I'll kind of bastardize it, but never judge someone because you never know what they're going through. To that effect, it's like everyone is fighting their own internal battle every day that you'll never know much about at all.
Right.
Even if you work with them as a coach, it's like getting them to understand it is like an endeavor in and of itself.
Sure. Yeah. Especially if the sunglasses are on thick and were applied back when they were 1 or 2 years old and they don't even know they exist. Those beliefs, the way you see yourself, the way you see the world. So it's all super interesting type of stuff. I do want to get into the totem though, because I just feel it sums up what I was trying to come across.
Stuff too.
Yeah. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I'll just pull this up here real quick. So this comes from spirit-animals.com. So if you just Google up honey badger totem, this is what comes up first. So I always like to give credit when I can. The quote for honey badger: "It would be best if you competed with no one but yourself. Dare to be a better version of the person you were yesterday." And the main meaning and message: in general, honey badger's symbolism is asking you to fight for the life of your dreams. Pretty cool, right? In other words, this spirit animal's meaning reminds you not to accept things the way that they are or settle for mediocrity in any aspect of your life. Thus, the honey badger means saying that you deserve happiness and should chase hard after it. Furthermore, like the bighorn sheep and the mongoose, honey badger's symbolism teaches you to face your opposition without fear. This power animal is most likely to show up in your life when you are passing through some crisis. And when it does, it sends a clear message to you: hang in there. Moreover, this creature's presence could be telling you to keep a close eye on your surroundings and the people in your life. Occasionally, the honey badger meaning indicates that you are in an environment where the competition is too high. Thus, like the emu, this spirit animal asks you to put up This spirit animal asks you to up your game if you wish to succeed. Alternatively, when this creature appears before you, it says that you should stop hiding behind a mask for fear of rejection. It's time to trust and let people see the authentic you. And that kind of does sum it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is, when you first told me, I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what I'm trying to say with no fucks given, is that
Yeah.
it's really about stripping away all of the crap that we filter all the time in order to exist. And so it's just, yeah. So anyway, I'm super excited about this. One, to be able to work with you. Two, to be able to share knowledge that we both have, and the learning that I assume we'll both get from doing this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, it's a positive sum endeavor for both of us, as we kind of talked about in our pre-launch meeting. It's ultimately, we're here to help people, you, the viewer, or whoever's listening or viewing right now. And a big part of that is by being vulnerable and developing ourselves in real time. So,
Right.
whenever you participate with this podcast, you're kind of imbuing yourself in an energy of authenticity and growth and vulnerability, probably just part of the ethos of it, because that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be showing up, and it's kind of scary for both of us, and we also know a lot that can help people, so it's kind of a blend of those two things.
Right. And at the
And
same
hopefully it'll be
time,
funny too. Yeah.
yeah, and at the same time, we don't know everything. And so,
God, no.
it's kind of like it's interesting. I
Should
don't
watch
know.
out for those people who say they know everything, just by the
Definitely
way.
those
Keep an eye
gurus.
on those people.
It's
Yeah.
the gurus that you got to be careful of. Years ago, I used to, and I don't know if it was in my 20s. I want to say it was probably in my 20s, probably not my teens. I used to tell people, they'd get upset with me. And I go, look, I just tell the truth as I see it. And I didn't
Mhm.
know how important that was. It's like, I'm just telling you my version of the truth, which
Mhm.
really, that's what everybody is showing up as, assuming that they're not, they don't have mental health issues and those types of things. And so part of that is understanding when you're communicating with people, when you're working, or not even working, just talking with friends, family, and you're wondering why would they say that, or what are they doing, is kind of understanding, look, this is the truth as they see it, and that they're
Mhm.
seeing the world, they see themselves, they see you in a different light than
Mhm.
maybe you do. So having that flexibility to understand that that's their truth, I think is kind of huge. I mean, when you look at where we're at politically and how, just separate people are, vaccinations now is becoming the big, like, oh my gosh, how dare they say we need to be vaccinated, versus the other camp that's like, why would you not get vaccinated? They each have their own truth behind it. And instead of getting upset or frustrated, is kind of understanding now, okay, well, how can we gain perspective on their truth? And what is it
Yeah.
about their truth that serves them, that makes them feel good? And while
Mhm.
understanding what your truth is and why does it feel good to you and how you
Mhm.
want to move forward. So,
Yeah, I just want to add an asterisk to that. That
mhm,
that is an excellent way to operate in life, every time with people. And as far as I can tell, gradients of personality disorders run rampant, and a lot of people
sure.
see the world and yourself in very distorted ways.
Right.
So knowing the difference between understanding someone's truth and someone who's just kind of really looking at the world through a funny mirror, and used to go in those carnivals, and you look at the mirror and it reflects back to you something different than reality.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there viewing life in that way, and
Yeah.
I don't know how to give you anyone a catch-all, like how can you discern between the two, other than operating the way you just said, Ryan. When people are seen and heard and validated and not made wrong, that is transformational in and of itself.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that they're right, necessarily about you or about the world or the way they challenge your beliefs. They might be way off.
Right.
But taking that empathetic stance is incredibly useful.
Yeah.
And also, have enough empathy and you can feel into when it's like, all right, I just need to get away, because that's the right move sometimes too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But everyone out there is fighting a hard battle. I think that's a very, very deep meaning. There's a reason they keep printing those on, birthday cards and whatever.
Well, you're talking about Carl Buchheit, our main teacher, is more and more he says being human is, I forget if it's extremely difficult or just being human is difficult. Something like that.
Being human's not as easy as it looks. That's
there you go. Yeah, being
yeah.
human is not as easy as it looks. So
I would agree.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. Well, I think that kind of wraps up as far as, for me, unless there's something else you want to include as far as this episode, why we got started. And then I think one of the things I'm really looking forward to is the interaction with people as we kind of talk about different subjects. I know one of the ones that you brought up, I'm just looking at it as kind of like tapping in the habits. And what's going to kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier, like, oh, I'd like to make it a habit of getting up and going for a walk. That's something I just started yesterday. Today was my second day. Because
nice,
pre-COVID, I used to have a workout routine, and then that all disappeared, and I've just gotten lazy and sleeping in later. I'm not as motivated to get up in the morning. And so I'm like, I need a next step to kind of get me going in the morning. So it's like, all right, let's just go for a walk. Doesn't have to be super physical. I just need to go for a walk, a good half-hour walk. And that's kind of like, okay, that's going to be my new habit to kind of start my day with movement, so that that movement carries over for the rest of the day versus being more stagnant. So
nice, man. Yeah. I was fortunate enough to have a good friend of mine turn me on to walking a few months ago, actually. And I'm down 25 pounds as a result of not just the walking, but, lifting weights and doing other things. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, this is, and part of being authentic is like, professionally, I do transformational NLP work with people. I work as a mindset coach, but I'm out. I have my own coaches. I have therapists. I work with transformational people as well. So it's like I'm eating my own dog food and I'm living a life too. And some onions you may peel for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just got one more thing if we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I think I told you about this. I got this picture and I'll get it up here close.
There you go.
I don't know what it says here. I don't know who, let me just wrap that up here. I don't know who the artist is, even though it's signed right here. I don't know what's going on in this thing at all, but this painting is imbued with meaning for me, as we talked about. So, and it's directly related to the show, and it's something that's been on my mind for years. I think I told you the first time you called me, I'm like, this is very funny that you're saying all this, because I have this picture that is related to all this that I think about constantly when I look at it. The old enrollment director, Shannon from NLP Marin, did you ever meet her? I don't know if she moved on before.
Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, so Shannon used to be the enrollment director at NLP Marin, and she was an incredible woman. Unlike anyone I've ever met in my entire life, she has the ability to just be right there with you, like with every fiber and cell of her body, and not in like a salesy way, but in like just a really deeply authentic way. We weren't friends like we'd call each other on Friday night, but we had a really kind of deep and special connection with each other. And she passed from cancer after a pretty long battle of it. And at her, not so much a memorial, but we celebrated her life at a friend's house, and people were sharing memories of Shannon and talking about because she didn't want to meet a lot of people in her decline. So there was kind of like a tight group that was with her as she was, declining more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people didn't really get to say goodbye in person, which is totally fine. That's her choice. But her partner was sharing kind of, pretty close to the end. She was probably like belly to belly with death at this point, the way he told it. But he was talking with her. They were having a conversation, and she's like, "I'm angry. Like I don't know if I'm going to be able to transfer the way this was transferred to me." But she's like, "I'm angry that it took facing death, like for real, like congruently, to live the life I want and to say the things I wanted and to be the person I want to be."
Yeah.
And it just like a javelin, like, from her heart into my psyche, from beyond the grave, coming through her partner telling the story. It's like, it's like, don't wait to be yourself and do what you want to do. Until you're forced to kind of make these decisions. And she was a wonderful person, but I think that's the biggest gift she gave me, was, even, as I said, from beyond the grave. Just like,
Right.
I can feel that, like, her mind kind of finally turned loose, and she was being and doing exactly what she wanted to do. And it was right before she passed away. So when I look at this, I think about that. And I wouldn't say it's been transformational overnight, but I think piece by piece by piece, it's really kind of led to where we are right now. It's like,
Right.
man, what do we have to lose by being ourselves, other than all the stuff that doesn't actually matter?
Right. Yeah.
So I meant to have this up on the wall before we started, but it'll be there from now on.
It'll get there. It'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
Yeah. That's there's just so much there. There's just so much there. So
Yeah,
as far as like talking points and conversations,
mm-hmm.
And it's so true. And how many people have that experience, whatever it may be. It could be a car accident, or they're out riding a bicycle and they almost
Mm-hmm.
get hit by a big rig. And it's all about, I got flipping the switch, but you have a tolerance, right? We all have tolerances. And when you hit one of those big ones, like, oh, I almost died.
Mm-hmm.
That one has a way, or I'm going to die. That has a way of flipping a lot of switches that have a high tolerance against change. So,
oh yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Tough way to go about it, but it's
a tough way.
It's like, we should not count on facing death to turn loose. We should kind of take it. I gotta find a better way to say this, because it's kind of gross, but I can't. But it's like, if the old saying, if you're going to eat how do you eat an elephant?
Right.
One fork at a time, one spoonful at a time. It's like, I think we need to take that approach to our lives and take it slow, and know that living a life of meaning and discovering who we truly are authentically without fooling ourselves, right? That caveat's real tricky one.
Right.
That's why I don't think anyone can ever do it alone. Change is a team sport. You can do a lot of change yourself. I don't want to discount that, but you absolutely need an outside perspective at some point.
Yeah.
And that's why I invest in them, because I believe that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and a lot of people use Tiger Woods, one of the greatest golfers back in his day, and he had multiple coaches.
Yeah.
He did not do it on his own. So, all right, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have 1,000 other things that we could talk about just based on that, but I think timing wise, we're gonna cut it here because we'll have great opportunities. Yeah, we totally could.
That's good news. Yeah.
That is good news. It makes doing these podcasts really simple. Where
could it be easy and fun? Like, is that possible?
It's like, okay, well, we got another 5 minutes. What are you gonna? It's like, no. We're this. This is
high quality problems to have too much to say. Yeah. That's the best we can hope for in life, I think. Just better problems to solve, as another teacher, Michelle Masters of ours, says.
Yeah.
that's kind of the trick to it. It never ends. They just get better.
Right. Yeah. They just get better. And to some degree, I would say even easier to overcome, recognize what changes you want and then making those shifts. So, all right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn up a little music. We don't have an ending slide or anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and end the stream here.
I'll change the color of this. Oh,
there you go. There you go. Looking sharp.
Thank you, everyone. Keep coming back.
Yep, it's going to be weekly, 10:15 on. It's today Tuesday. It's Tuesday then.
On Tuesdays at 10:15 Pacific, and we will upload an audio version for your morning walks if you choose to do something like that.
Yes, we'll get those links out. All righty, sir. Yeah. Always appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody out there.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to connecting with you next